Now, Kirsty Blackman is the SNP MP for Aberdeen North. Of course, therefore, she was a campaigner for Remain yesterday, which won in Scotland, but which lost in Britain as a whole. I'm going to infer that she supports the statement of her leader, Nicola Sturgeon, today, in which she said that the independence referendum too is very much now on the table. So let's explore that with her. She's been good enough to come on the show. Kirsty, welcome.
Good evening. Hiya.
First of all, what was the result in your area, in the northeast of Scotland? It was a bit closer than it was some other places, no?
It was in some parts of the northeast of Scotland. So Aberdeenshire and Moray had pretty close results. In Aberdeen, it was a pretty clear result for Remain.
Mm-hmm. Moray was 50-50, I think, no?
It was really pretty close, yeah.
So, anyway, leaving aside the issue of just how Europhile Scotland is, and I fought the referendum in 1975 when it was one of the least Europhile places in the EU referendum, or the EC Common Market referendum as it then was, leaving that aside. Do you really believe that the Scottish Government has the legal authority to hold another referendum on independence so soon after the last one?
I think the Scottish Parliament has a right to choose if it should hold a referendum, not so much the government, but a majority within the Parliament. I think that's completely reasonable if that's the will of Parliament, based on the will of the people.
Is it legal, though?
A reasonable way to go.
Is it legal?
Is it legal? I don't think it's illegal. I don't think there's that we can't.
As you know, the last referendum took place under the legal authority of a decision of the Westminster Parliament, which has now expired. Not the Parliament, but the legal authority. So it would require the Westminster Parliament to pass new legislation for a second referendum, wouldn't it?
Well, I understand in terms of technicalities, we could have a referendum without that. Obviously, there was the historic Edinburgh Agreement, and genuinely nobody knows what would happen if we had to negotiate, another independence referendum. I think that if we had the backing of Parliament, if Parliament wanted an independence referendum, I think it'd be very difficult for Westminster to say no. Particularly,
it's just that you promised us that it would. Alex Salmond was never done telling us that this was the last chance for a generation. And now, even in these fast-moving times, 2 years is not a generation.
And I completely understand that, but it was not foreseen that we would be dragged out of the EU against our will. I've had some of my friends that most vociferously were in favour of no getting in touch and saying, I would support Scottish independence now. I'd rather be European and Scottish than be outside Europe. So there has been a real mindset change with some people.
Yeah, although that wasn't demonstrated in the Scottish Parliament elections in May, was it? Because actually you lost your majority in the Scottish Parliament.
In terms of the number of MSPs, we've got fewer MSPs than we had previously. It's very, very difficult to get a majority in the system of proportional representation that there is. It's set up so that we don't do that. And actually, it's so unusual for a government to be as popular as the SNP government has been, even now. This far in.
I'll grant you that, but it doesn't seem to indicate a seismic shift, at least in May, and this is only June, that towards the support for Scottish breakaway. And
I think the key thing, the thing that has possibly changed people's minds, and it's really too early to tell, has been, the referendum. I don't think that you can't really necessarily equate support for the SNP with support for independence. They're two different things. And, the Green Party got a sizable vote and have got, some MSPs as well. So
would they vote, you think, for a new referendum? Because they've got the balance, don't they?
There's a majority of MSPs in the Scottish Parliament who are in favour of independence, because the Green Party, that's in their manifesto that they favour independence too.
Yeah. So it's quite likely then that Nicola Sturgeon will get her way and that there will be a referendum. Of course, that then opens up, we can't speculate as to what the European Union will be come 2 years from now.
Yeah, and just to stop you there, I think we need to take a step back, that it's not we're immediately jumping into a referendum. It's we will do our best and we will see what we can do to ensure that Scotland stays within the EU. And I think that's the key thing. Those avenues with talks with Brussels and things need to be explored first. It's not immediately we will have an independence referendum. It's let's
no,
see
but
what we can do.
it's within 2 years of the triggering of Article 50. So that's basically 2 years come September, sometime in that period. Here's what I just don't get, and I think you are weak on this, but not you personally, but the SNP and the independence argument is weak on this point. Why do you want to come out of a democratically elected union in Britain, but remain in an entirely undemocratic union in Brussels?
Well, you can argue the nature of democracy there, because actually the Westminster Parliament's not particularly democratic.
No, but it's a lot more democratic than the EU.
Number of lords.
No, I agree, and I'm in favour of not until the last lord is hanged by the last ermine robe and all that. I agree with you on that, but it's a lot more democratic than the EU, which is not democratic at all.
The EU is relatively democratic, and actually, if you look at,
did you elect Donald Tusk or Herr Juncker?
I didn't, but I did get to elect my members of the European Parliament.
Yeah, but the European Parliament has no power.
European Parliament has some power.
Well, very, very little. A parish council compared to the power of the European Commission and the Council of Ministers.
But then you get into the nature of discussions about power. So in terms of the Westminster Parliament, do we actually directly elect the Prime Minister?
Well, look, you would never accept the level of powerlessness in the European Parliament. You would never accept a Scottish Parliament with such little power.
I think one of the differences between the European Union and the United Kingdom is the way that those two things are set up. So in terms of the European Union, there are vetoes. There's the ability to opt out of things for nation states, and there is that ability. Whereas within the UK, Scotland feels quite a lot of the time that we have things done to us.
Well, you have them done to you by the European Union, and the difference is you have a say in electing a British government, but you have no say in the election of the European Union's government.
But the British government have a veto over some of the things that the European Union do.
Well, increasingly few things, because more and more things are subject to qualified majority voting.
Whereas Scotland has no veto over anything that Westminster does to us.
No, I think the point that you made earlier was a good one, that you don't want to be dragged out of the European Union against your will, but you propose to drag Scotland out of the United Kingdom against the will of the rest of the people of the United Kingdom. How fair is that?
I think it'd be interesting to see what the levels of support for Scottish independence are within the rest of the United Kingdom. We've never asked them. And actually, having spoken to quite a few people around London, I spend more time in London than I ever have before. Speaking to those people, there's quite a few of them that are, relatively in favour of Scotland having independence.
Well, not me, and I'm Scottish. I didn't even get a vote. Look, Kirsty Blackman, it's been a pleasure to disagree with you. Thanks very much indeed for coming.
Yes, you too, thanks.
On the mother of all talk shows.